Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm happy that we have LaGanzie Kale with us. He's the founder and general manager of KLEK 102.5, the first and only minority operated radio station in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And I also noted from LaGanzie's talk at the GRC that you've won lots of awards and also noted that the station is named for your mother, which I thought was really cool. And I'm glad to have you. Today, you're going to talk about creating a fundraising prospectus and fact sheet. So I will turn it over to you.
All right, well, excuse me. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Of course, Kaylee K is no longer the only black-owned radio station in Jonesboro, um,
Hey,
but
you inspired people.
our soon-to-be sister station, Glory 104.3, just got approved in this most recent LPFM window to launch a station. It's going to be a all gospel station, but it's something that the community is excited about. And of course, we've been working with the nonprofit that owns it, New Life Empowerment Development Corporation. So basically, soon we'll have two black-owned radio stations, community stations in Jonesboro, which is kind of surreal because I think almost 10 years ago there were none.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So basically, slowly but surely increasing the diversity on the airwaves. Welcome everybody. Like I said, LaGanzie Kale, founder and GM of KLEKLP. And as she mentioned, the um LEK and KLEK is my late mother's initials, Lovey Edmund Kale, who was my mom was a breast cancer survivor, long-term survivor. So this when I was thinking of call letters when starting the station, that'll be a good way to honor her legacy because I would not be the man that I am without her today. I will ask for your forgiveness, everyone. I last week had a endoscopy and colonoscopy, so there may be times I may have to kind of pause to catch my breath because I'm still dealing with some sore throat issues. But
Oh, sure.
today we are going to reprise a presentation that I actually first gave at the 2019 GRC, I believe. I believe that was the one in Portland. That was the first time that I presented it. And I remember doing it when we had the virtual GRC that WXOX put on, and most recently back in person for the most recent GRC in Charleston. So I guess if I can get this screen sharing to work, we'll dive into it. May have to X out of this. So it looks like I need to share the middle screen here. So we'll do screen two. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So creating a funding prospectus and stat sheet. There's me. There's my contact information. If anyone wants to contact me, you can screenshot it or write it down. Or if not, then Stephanie can happily pass along the info. So, a little bit of background. So, in March 2017, we received a donation of $25,738 to build a 100 feet self supporting tower from First National Bank here in Jonesboro. And the information on our funding prospectus and stat sheet played a major role in the decision of the bank to fund our tower project. So, let me kind of just give a little bit of the backstory. So, if you look in on this picture right here, the second gentleman from the left, that was the former mayor. He was the mayor at the time that this happened. We had him on our
Excuse me, Leganzi. It looks like your toolbar is kind of blocking the picture.
it, huh.
I don't know if
Talk.
that looks like that to you.
It doesn't to me. Um, let me see if I can move this over. Because it seems like when I try to hit present, it seems to. Let me see if I can flip to. Oh, dang! That I put it on all three screens, which I guess wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
You have three screens? Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Now trying to sort. So let's uh let's try to share screen one. Uh okay, is it still in the way?
There, that looks better. Thank you.
Okay, so getting back. So the mayor like is the second one on the left. So we had him on our community talk show, which is Community Conversations. We do that every Monday through Friday, from 9 to 10 a.m. And we interview government officials, faith-based leaders, other nonprofits, pretty much anyone who is trying to make a difference in the community. And after we had the mayor on, after we got off the air, he said, is there anything that we can do to help you help make your station better? And I just so happen to have a copy of the funding prospectus and stat sheet, which again we'll kind of go into the nuts and bolts in a minute. And he focused in on our tower. And he said, so if you all had the money to get a better tower, what would that do? I said, well, that would double our height because when we originally launched the station, we actually filed for our CP for 47 feet. That was because we were so close to the local airport. If we had went any higher, the FAA would have gotten involved. So our consulting engineer, Al Davis, basically say, file it at 47 feet, just get it on the air, and then you can always come back and file another CP to go up to the 400 feet. So basically, he took the information in our prospectus to the guy that's right next to him on the right. That's Mr. Will. He is the owner of First National Bank, and they were owned. And basically, Will was like, "Well, how much money do they need?" They said, "We're around about 25,000." They said, "Well, why don't we just give them a check for all of it?" And pretty much that's how the check actually came about. And we were able to take that funding to hire the contractor to build the tower. And of course, if anyone has any questions, just please stop me as I'm going along. So there's a picture of the actual tower. It is still here on the property to this day. So a little bit more of the background. So the Neil Griffin College of Business at Arkansas State University, where I attended and graduated college at, they created a strategic plan for KLEK, and that was actually kind of something else that was born out of our community conversations talk show. We actually had the dean of the College of Business on, and he said that students in their MBA program, what they would do is that they would assign them to work with various nonprofits, and pretty much they would get assigned a group of MBA students that are about to graduate, and they would spend a semester with the nonprofit, and they would create a strategic plan to better improve that organization. And of course, this was like a service that normally a business would be charged $10,000 for, in which we basically got for free. So, as I mentioned, the strategic plan was created by graduate students in the MBA program as a capstone project. One of their primary suggestions in the plan was to create a funding prospectus. And basically, what it was, instead of saying, hey, give us money, spell out exactly what do we need, how much do we need, and why do we need it. So basically, they recommended that our funding prospectus consist of various parts. So obviously, the first part was the introduction, just telling a little bit about ourselves, what we do in the community, what we're trying to accomplish, and so on. And then we broke it down into projects. So as I mentioned, the tower was a project. We also had our station van as a project, and we had some improvements on the building. Everything was kind of broken down into individual projects. And each project, we would have supporting documentation like cost of the project, a breakdown of how, if we were able to complete this project, it would make the station better, increase our reach, be able to serve and to help more people. The breakdown of each project. So each project, we broke it down into the name of the project, the background of the project, why did we need it, what would the project accomplish, where the project would take place. Would this be something that take place in the studio? Would it be something that would be out in the field if we're out broadcasting remotely? The timeline to implementation. In other words, if we were to get the funding, how long would it take to actually complete the project? The budget for the project, And if someone supported the project, how would the gift be acknowledged? So, in the case of First National Bank with the tower, because they funded the whole project, we gave them naming rights to the tower. So every hour on the hour, when we do our legal ID, it says broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower. This is KLEK Jonesboro. So that is how we acknowledged their gift. And of course, any supporting materials, again, cost estimates, any data, any facts, any stats, anything that was related to each project. And then after I get through the slideshow, I'll try to actually pull up the actual funding prospectus, let y'all see what it looked like. Of course, one of the things that they emphasize that we include in our perspectives is to highlight accomplishments. So one thing I always tell people, especially if they're starting a new station, pretty much document everything, everybody that you reach, every community service that you do, write it down. Like, for example, KLEK, we have worked with over 50 other local nonprofits. So like if we have another nonprofit on our community talk show, we count that as someone we work with. Uh if we do a PSA for them announcing a community event that they have going on, we count that. So, and that helps us to build our case for support because we can show, say, hey, we're working with these other organizations. We are actually doing these things to help make our community just a little bit better. The stat sheet. So, inspiration for the stat sheet came from materials passed out at athletic press conferences. So, being near the campus of Arkansas State University, I would get press credentials for football games, basketball games, and I would go sit in the press box. And after each quarter or half of the or at the end of the game, they would always like pass out to all the media these sheets and pretty much would have more stats than you could shake a stick at, like individual player stats, team stats, broke down, but it was always broken up into categories with catchy titles to gain their attention. So even though that wasn't necessarily a suggestion that I was given, it was something that I just decided to do kind of like as a supporting documentation. Just and once I kind of review the stat sheet, you'll kind of see more of what I'm talking about. Why a stat sheet? So the stat sheet allows for potential underwriters and donors to learn more about what you do as well as demographic information about your listeners. So what's in the stat sheet? The basics, the who, what, when, why, and where, mission statement and values, description of coverage area, um, your non-commercial listener supported status, programming, awards recognitions, community involvement, or basically anything that makes you stand out. Radio listenership, if you can get it, for around $600 per year, you can get the information from the Radio Research Consortium. It's actually been a couple years since we've actually got it, but that's something that we've definitely gotten in the past. Of course, you can always track your website hits, your people that's reached on all your social media, including your YouTube video views. I know people always like to ask, well, how many listeners you got? And obviously, that's kind of like a tricky question, but I always kind of redirect and tell people, well, we have this many people engaged with the station because engaging with the station is not just the people who listen on the air, but the people who follow on social media, on the website, listen to the app, pretty much anything, any way in which they can touch your station, we usually try to track that information. All website hosts and social media have analytics in which you can draw data. Demographic data. This is attractive to underwriters who, in addition to knowing your mission and what you do, they also can know more about your supporters. Hours listening to your station, how many support your underwriters because they've heard you on the station, age, race, gender, education level, income level, registered voters. That's actually a very important one. And the way that we got a lot of this data is we actually created a listener survey. We created a form on Google and we would ask our listeners to say, fill out this survey. And, it would ask questions about listening to the station, but it also asked demographic questions about themselves, which we was able to use to help us to get support. So how to get the demographic info for the stat sheet? As I kind of mentioned, we created the listener survey. Um, you can use Google Forms, Survey Monkey. I think there's a new one out now that is slipping my mine, but if you Google it, you can find free form makers out there. And then you can put it on your website and you can share it on your social media. And of course, there's the link to our survey. It's actually an old link. I'm not even sure if it's even up anymore. Back to what's in the stat sheet. Make the case for why people should support you. How again, highlight what you do. Explain how people supporting you allows you to fulfill your mission while informing your audience about their support. Show the various ways people which you can support you, whether being individual donors, um, one-time donors, monthly donors. We used to have Amazon Smile before they canceled that, but we used to be a part of that. We're still on Kroger Community Rewards. There's other different things that allow for organizations to fundraise. So, and of course, I always encourage people just to spread the word if they can't afford to support anywhere else. And then in the stat sheet with the summary that ties it all together. A word about social media, website, app stats. While the primary stat people want to know is how many listeners you have, don't ignore your social media, website, app stats. If you're not making full use of your social media, do it. Live streaming events in the community on Facebook is a great way for its exposure. In fact, I would say just having the ability to live stream events has definitely been a game changer for us because, especially with us being a community station, a lot of times we will get asked to stream and cover events that other media won't come out to, especially events in the Black community with us being the Black radio station. And we've even been able to get sponsors for it. A couple years back, we had a bank that for an entire year, they sponsored all of our live streams. So whenever we would go live on our Facebook, we would tag that bank and every post that we did going live. And, that was funding for the station.
What are some examples, LaGanzie, of events that you guys covered?
So, we'll just turn off the stop share just for a moment since we've reached the end. So, for example, um, on the campus of Arkansas State University, members of the traditionally Divine Nine Black Greek organizations, which I'm a member of, one Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, well, those organizations have their new member presentations on campus. And so those organizations would reach out to us and say, hey, could you come and stream um, our new member presentations. And one that we did even before that, a couple weeks back, there was this organization in town called Future for Felons. And pretty much they are a social justice organization, which is focused on helping people who may have gotten felony charges, who have completed their sentence and completed all of their requirements to help them to reintegrate into society. So pretty much they had like a forum. They had the police chief on, they had the head of the local NAACP. They had several other guests they had a roundtable discussion, and we came out and we streamed that, and it was a, what was good about that was it was during the daytime, so a lot of people couldn't necessarily come out because it was during work hours, but they was able to go back and watch the video earlier. As I mentioned, the local NAACP, we have covered some of those meetings. One thing that we streamed that was probably the most watched thing that we ever streamed. This was during the George Floyd protests
Mm-hmm.
when those broke out all over the country. We had a George Floyd protest here. We marched from a local store to the police station. There was over 1,000 people that were marching. And when everybody got to the police station, the police chief came outside and he engaged with the crowd. Well, we completely obliterated our streaming record for that day. We had over 3,000 people that were tuned into our Facebook Live. And the only reason why we didn't have more than that was because my iPhone overheated. Um, but all of the other radio stations in town were sharing our video because the other media, they were afraid because it was such a volatile situation. So basically, I remember the GM of the local country commercial station in town said, "Hey, LaGanzie, I shared your video and I gave you credit. I hope you didn't mind." I said, "No, thanks to you, I got an additional 1,000 followers that day." So
Yeah.
I think it's so, and it's free. I mean, everybody has a phone. So, and I don't know why I don't see more community stations actually taking advantage of bringing those events to the communities. Like another one that we did was Um, so a couple years back, we were trying to get a street here named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Um, Something like that you th would think would be routine, would be normal, but it ended up being very controversial. There was a lot of pushback. Jonesboro
Wow.
is a good place, but Jonesboro is very conservative. So there's that.
We
So
understand.
it basically took it was like almost a 9 month process to get this street renaming to pass. But every one of those committee, the mayor appointed a committee to study to find a way to solve this issue to where everyone would be satisfied. And we were the only media, the only organization that covered every single one of those meetings. And because of that, when it finally did pass, we were actually given one of the MLK signs, which we have hanging in our studio. One of our
Awesome.
most recent controversies that we covered is pertaining to the LGBTQIA community. So a couple years back, during June, which is Pride Month, the local library had a pride display in the library, and that included a display in the children's section. They had like some books pertaining to LGBTQI youth that were age appropriate. Well, the local conservatives did not like that. And so the library board meetings went from nobody attending to standing room only with armed security. And basically, even local legislators was basically threatening the funding of the library. Ultimately, what did end up happening is that the local conservatives did get and they took advantage of an obscure county law and they had it put on the ballot to cut the library's funding in half. And they argued it under the guise of a tax cut, but it was really more punitive toward the library refusing to remove LGBTQIA content from the library. This did pass, and the library's funding was cut by 50%. So because of that,
Oh,
lots of
wow.
people got lost their jobs at the library. Lots of services were cut, hours were cut, and the ramifications of this are still being felt. Well, where does KLEK come into that? Again, we not only covered 2 years worth of those board meetings, we also provided sound equipment for the library board. So, and again, all of that information, getting back to the original topic, was put into our
Well, before
funding
you
prospectus.
get to that, I see Annie has a question.
Okay, go ahead. Well, I'm going to try to pull up that funding prospectus to short you, but go ahead and ask your question.
My question just pertains to when you do these controversial things, do you receive, say, financial financial like do people rescind their support of you? Like, is it
We
controversial enough that people are like, oh hell no, I'm not giving it that station, or do you take these risks knowing that that could be a problem, or do
we
people support you more when you
we
do it?
we've lost a donor here or there, but
Mhm.
overall, it's actually the opposite. A lot of times, our support increases. One thing that I fiercely try to do is enforce my neutrality, and people respect KLEK in the community. We we really make a concerted effort to involve all sides of the issues. In fact, just for example, as far as our programming, so we actually have a talk show that is called Conservative Corner, where the local Tea Party, they come on once a month and they talk from their perspective. We actually used to have a counterpart program called Making Progress. But the lady that was hosting that show kind of stopped doing it. We're actually trying to find someone to replace her to do it. But I always tell people that I believe our listeners are smart enough to make up their own mind without me having to steer them one way other or the
Mhm.
other. But yes, now am I afraid that something like that can happen? Oh yes. I mean, especially in the earlier days, I used to be like scared to death all the time. But believe it or not, it surprisingly it's been the opposite.
Hmm.
We really haven't just lost like widespread support for when we actually recover topics. Now, I mean, yeah, I may lose an individual donor here and there, and of course, I can lose individual donors for any reason. Sometimes I lose individual donors because somebody's credit card goes on the fritz, and
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
don't want to mess with trying to renew it. But
Yeah.
we've been pretty fortunate, and that's something that I sometimes sit and I meditate. I'm like, wow, a black kid from West Helena, Arkansas, has been able to somehow make this work in conservative Jonesboro, Arkansas. For those you may not know,
Right.
Arkansas as a state voted for President Trump in pretty much 2016, 20, and 2020 by a larger margin than any other state in the union. But
Hmm.
again, I can't say, even despite the conservative tilt of the area, if you just try to do right by people, people will respect you, appreciate it, and
Hmm.
support. So now I'm going to try to find the funding prospectus, just kind of show you a little bit of what it actually looks like. Okay, I think this is the most recent version of it. Uh, See if I can get the screen share back on. This is like kind of weird looking to me because it's like showing up on like all three of my screens the same thing. Okay, do y'all see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is I desperately need to update this, but this is the actual funding prospectus. I actually had hired a graphic designer to design this. So this is the introduction. I actually did go with a Bible verse, which basically this is just saying write down the vision. So this was the page about the tower. So as you see here, raise the tower from 47 to 100 feet. Background: the current tower was built at a height of 47 feet because that was the highest that we could be built without triggering the FAA approval, which would have delayed our launch. And then we put what area of the strategic plan was addressed, which was the fundraising part of our strategic plan. Why did we need the tower? At the time, the current tower was the same height as the surrounding trees and shorter than a lot of the trees, which kind of blocked our signal. What would the project accomplish by raising the tower to 100 feet? It would allow us to reach the maximum, which is allowed by the FCC for LPFM, and it gets us up a little higher than the trees, which helps improve our signal. We're at our studio, 1411 Franklin Street. The timeline to implementation, we at the time was in the process of applying, and once we got approved, I think it took maybe about a month between the ping ponging with the FCC and the FAA before we got approved for the construction permit. And of course, how much needed was the budget. As I mentioned, it was like a little over $26,000. And this section, I know it's kind of covered up because we put this big funded and completed on here, but this was just kind of like the cost of the tower right here. How would the gift be acknowledged? As we mentioned, we gave them, and they still to this day have naming rights to the tower, which we include in our legal ID, which we acknowledge in this section right here. Supporting materials. So we fast forward to Appendix A. That was that picture of the actual tower. I'm gonna try to see if I can zoom in to find I mean I can find it, but the quote well, this was actually a letter that we got from our congressman. So under supporting documentation, again, pretty much any kind of positive feedback, we put in. And of course, if anybody would like a copy of this email, I'd be happy to. So let me zoom in on this. So this is not actually for the tower, but this is like for like some of our studio stuff. Like this is like picture of an equipment quote from BSW. So, and of course, good old Amazon. So those are just examples of some of of just one of the projects that we had in our funding prospectus. So next I want to show is the stat sheet. Let's see, info. All right, can you all see this? This is Kaylee K, the info and the numbers. Can everybody see this?
I see the Who project background.
Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. I gotta restart it because I closed that out. All right, share screen. Um, okay, can y'all see it now?
I see. What is KLEK?
Yes, that's the info and the
Okay.
numbers. So basically, this is just kind of this is kind of like the breakdown of the stat sheet. So what is KLEK? This just mentioned we're at the time the only minority radio station. We're still the first. Why do we do what we do? And this is our mission. We're committed to empowering the citizens of Jonesboro to enhance their quality of life through educational entertainment programming that provides the link to current community affairs, events, and issues. And of course, what's in the name KLEK? That's our call letters, which was mentioned at the beginning of our um, speech here about naming the station after my late mother, Lovey McHale. And then here we have our values and our coverage area, which we broadcast at 100 watts at 100 feet. So that gives us about a 10 to 20-mile radius, depending on where you go. And we broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Non-commercial educational radio station. We're listener supported. And of course, it's mentioned some of the daily programming that we do, such as Black history, finance, health, women's empowerment, spiritual faith-based information, mental health, and Spanish language, all volunteer staff. And then here we kind of go into some of the awards that we got, such as we were we won the City Volunteer of the Year award for 3 years in a row. And then we had some of our other volunteer awards. Our recognition on the by Congress and the governor and the Arkansas Senate. Here are just some of the organizations we partner with. And then I kind of mentioned about our Community Conversations talk show. As we mentioned earlier, allowing all sides to be heard on the issues. Of course, one thing that I'm very proud of right here, increasing the diversity of the Jonesboro Police Department. So ever since we've launched the station, we've had the local police chief on every first Wednesday of the month. In fact, right around about the time we were trying to get KLEK on the air, he became chief, and we had our own um, police brutality incident here in Jonesboro, the Chavis Carter situation. And so when Chief Elliott, who is the chief now, when he took over, one of his things he wanted to do was to help repair the relationship between the police department and the Black community. So basically, when I told him I was getting ready to start the station, and he agreed to do an interview, and he's been back ever since. Well, in 2016, JPD had their most diverse class of recruits ever. It was over 50% minority. And now the police department is the most diverse it's ever been. The assistant chief is a woman. Jonesboro just had their second ever in history Black lieutenant. There are Black sergeants and several Black, Hispanic, and officers of other races and backgrounds. There are LGBTQIA officers on the force. And
Wow.
KLK, we had a small little part in that by working with the police department and being involved in the community. So that was something that I'm very proud of. And of course, we put that in there because it's all about telling your story when you're looking to ask people to support you. Any kind of positive impact that you have on the community, be sure to include it in there.
That makes me think, LaGanzie, of another woman who gave a talk about underwriting and fundraising. And maybe Ursula, you can help me remember her name, but she was saying how important it is to keep up relationships, regardless if they give money or not, to just keep those relationships strong. So then, um,
Well, I remember doing leadership in Jonesboro, and I was told something that stuck with me. They said people do business with those they like.
mm,
So again, if you build a relationship with people like you, then they'll support you, and and they won't think anything of it. Like we having a underwriter that's an attorney, and me and him, we have we have a good little friendship. And basically he says, well, the money that I spend on your station, I blow more money in that on silly stuff. So why not give it to someone who is actually doing some good with it.
sure, yeah.
So now the numbers. So this is the information that we got from on the data collection. I'm not going to go over like all of these individual numbers, but you can kind of just see some of them right here. And then we got some demographic breakdown of our listeners. Of course, one stat I will pull out that I was very happy of, it says 92% of our listeners are registered voters. And that's one thing. Now, we always tell people we can't tell you who to vote for, but we strongly encourage you exercise your right to vote because somebody is going to sit in that chair and make decisions that affect you. So why not have a say in who that person is? And of course, why you should support KLEK. And so we have some information on the stuff that we do in the community. How does supporting KLEK benefit me? Which it helps, which it helps you to reach the audience and it helps you to align yourself with what we do. And then the different ways in which you can support. So support again, we talk about monthly donors, um, Kroger Community Rewards. Unfortunately, Amazon Smile no longer is an option. We are part of the vehicle donation program. We're also part of the property donation program. Now, no one has donated us a house yet. Would be nice because that would definitely be a nice donation. But hey, but if you want to donate a car, if you want to donate a house, if you want to donate stock, no one's donated us any stock yet. But those options are out there if you want to do that. So in summary, KLEK strives to be Jonesboro's community radio station, a place in which people can come together, enjoy a variety of music, and be informed about and discuss the issues that affect the community in a civil manner in harmony with our friends and neighbors. This is summed up in 4 simple words: your life, your music. All right,
Hmm.
and that's pretty much my presentation. Again, like I said, if y'all would like this information emailed to me, just pass the information on to Stephanie. I'll be happy to forward it to you, and I'll
Yeah.
take any questions that anyone has.
Well, those are really nicely organized and nice sheets that you have. And just really thoughtfully done. Yeah, really nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. Any other
Laganzi,
questions, comments?
Laganzi, tell me again who you give that sheet to generally.
So basically, we give it to potential underwriters, and donors.
Uh-huh.
But anybody that wants it, we'll happily share it with them. But the primary focus is, for our potential underwriters and donors.
I really like the idea of engaging with the station as opposed to just listenership.
Hmm.
That the first thing people ask me is like, what's our listenership? Like as soon as we go to a remote broadcast event, people are like, so how many people were listening? I was like, man, I really don't know. Like I can't track people listening in your car, and we're glad about that. But I like just the idea of the online stuff, the tracking the social media responses and things like that. Like that's also really valuable that I never really thought of too. So thank
Well,
you.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, just about everybody is on some form of social media. I mean, between
Yeah.
Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, even though they're trying to ban it, but we are Kaylee KFM on everything, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. Try to, if at all possible, try to keep your consistent across your platforms. It'll make people easier to find you. But between all the various social medias out there, you'll everyone will be on at least one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, in the digital world where it's not just airwaves. I think my radio station has just kind of like stuck with airwave engagement rather than like the whole spectrum.
Yep, and it's
That's
something
interesting.
that boggles my mind, especially in the
Yeah.
community radio segment, especially considering that, most, if not all of our community stations, we're, none of no one's getting rich doing this. And so this is basically a free means to um expand your reach. And again, there and because we have done this, you can parlay this into financial support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can get someone to sponsor your post or your streams.
Yeah.
But because like mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, because like what we did with the bank, so in addition to the tagging them every time we went live on Facebook, which we was able to we was able to give them numbers. So like, okay, so this video that we tagged you in, it did this many views. So we was able to send them a report of that. But we also gave them traditional underwriting as well on top of that. So it was a multi-layered, multi-tiered package that we
Yeah.
was able to do for them. But yeah, I encourage people all the time because there's lots of things that are going on that people would love to have covered, and that
Mhm.
you know especially depending on where you are, you may not just have the local media, or you may be the local media. It may not be a TV. I mean, we have two TV stations, and we've got plenty of commercial stations here, but you may be in an area that doesn't have any of that. Like a controversy that we most recently covered. So there was this lady, she bought this land and she operated a pet cemetery out of it. And lady passed away, and her son decided to sell the land to the local electric company. So electric company decided, well, we're gonna dig up all of these doggy graves. So yeah, you could tell not too many people were happy about that. So a lot of people got together to say, what can we do to stop this? And so I reached out and I said, hey, you all got this meeting coming up. Can I come and go live? And they said yes. And they were just happy, that I reached
Mhm.
out to them so that they could kind of help. And again, it wasn't me telling people whether you should support them or not support them. I just said, hey,
Yeah.
I would love to show up and cover this, and showed up, went live, and people can make up their own minds.
Mhm.
It's interesting. Like I asked the question about the controversy part earlier.
Mhm.
Um, like I have people, like we air something about Gaza, and people are like, well, I've been donating $20 a month for the last 10 years, and I'm gonna rescind my donation if you
Nope.
take this off. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're threatening me with money right now?
Not,
And I
not
and
to
I
not
just
to be
I
honest
just
with
get
you,
all,
that may be
yeah,
one I probably actually would be kind of afraid of.
yeah,
Um,
the Gaza one. But even
because now
like
luckily here it hasn't been, a huge issue. Um, But one thing that I just find surprising, like, because we've applied for like government grants and things like that, and it does kind of, I find that you if you do apply for certain government funding, you do have to actually sign a clause saying that you will not protest Israel. Um, I'm actually surprised someone hadn't actually challenged the
huh,
constitutionality of that, but yeah, that may be a hot potato that I even would probably be leery of. And if we weren't recording this, I would probably kind of go more in depth in my feelings on that, but I'll just leave it there.
When you go out and do your live streaming, what kind of equipment are you using or doing a Zoom?
Well, I got my background going on, so my phone's not. There it goes. Phone and a tripod. That's it. Phone and a tripod. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to go buy a fancy setup. Like I said, everybody got a phone. You can buy a tripod like 20, $30. You know, um, if your station doesn't already have a social media page, it's free to create one.
What do you have on your phone when you do it? You're on
What do you mean?
Facebook?
Yeah, so yeah, we mainly go live on Facebook. Now, like when we do in studio interviews, we'll do Facebook and YouTube.
Mm. I think that's what Davine does in Asheville. They
She
do
uses
Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions, comments? I've enjoyed talking to y'all. I'm surprised my voice is held up.
That's very
That's right.
interesting,
You had a
LaGanzie. Thank you. I
Yeah, I
appreciate
had
it.
for those that may came in late, last Friday I had an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, and
Mm.
um
Mm.
I had stopped breathing, so they had to ram a breathing tube down my throat. So it's been
Oh,
like
oh
talking and
oh
eating has been difficult. So to be able, I'm surprised that I've been able to talk almost an hour and not just be in excruciating pain. So
Wow. Well, we're doubly lucky to have you today. Did you get
Thank you.
intubated?
Yeah, I was knocked
Is that
out.
what yeah.
Funny thing is the colonoscopy part, nothing, no pain, no discomfort, anything. It's just the
Just
front
the
end. The back end was fine, but the front end,
My mom had the same thing. She had heart surgery and she didn't have any pain in the heart, but the intubation lasted with her for weeks. So that's interesting.
well, I'm hoping that this doesn't last weeks because
Yeah, I
like
hope
when
so
I
too.
eat, like I have to literally like eat ice. I have to like eat a few pieces of ice to
Hmm.
numb my throat before I can even have a bite of food.
Yeah, I hope yours clears up faster.
Could you put your contact information into chat?
Yes, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Stand by, everyone.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions while we're wrapping up?
Well, LaGanzie, this like this content that like the papers you showed us,
Mm-hmm.
about how many staff did that require to accomplish?
I pretty much did it on my own.
So
Um,
would you say it was like a full-time job for a week or a month, or
I think
how
it took
would
me about
you,
a couple weeks.
so like a full-time 2 week period?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, thank you, LaGanzie. This was a treat to have you. I enjoyed your presentation a lot, and I think there will be lots more people to get more out of this on the YouTubes. And I feel like we got an elite presentation. Us happy few band of brothers or band of sisters listening to a
Mm-hmm.
brother. Um, was
Well,
it was
I
great.
enjoyed it, and I just typed it in the chat, the contact information. Oh, and then put
Okay,
the
fantastic.